Hello there. Excess coincidences have gone up again. The latest government official statistics from the ONS show that the number of people that passed away in the UK during the week ending the 19th of May was 13,189. That's 11.7% above the 5-year rolling average. And if you don't think 11.7% is that significant, then think of it in terms of inflation and pay rises. Now, the week previous to that, the week to the 12th of May, showed 2.5% of excess deaths, following weekly falls from the end of April when it was 12.9%. And when that 2.5% figure came out, I thought and hoped that maybe we were following a path back down to more normal levels. But today's data indicates otherwise. And the figures show that the recent lurgy was not the cause of the bulk of them. The cause was not identified. And not a peep on this as far as I can see from anyone in the press. Where's the outrage at 1,378 people more than normal passing away? And get this. The numbers in England and Wales for private homes was 22.2% in excess. In hospitals, 7.1% more, and care homes, 11.4%. All those excess coincidences. No questions by politicians or press. Where are the medics screaming for answers? No one in authority cares or wants to know. They don't want answers, they want silence, compliance and acceptance. They would much rather that we concentrated on issues like Philip Schofield. Isn't it amazing that MPs are due to question ITV bosses over that particularly sordid media saga, but not investigate the excess deaths of thousands of people every month? Talk about bread and circuses. Now, what Schofield did may have been very questionable, but has anyone proved that any law was actually broken? Does it really constitute such a terrible incident that MPs have to call in the ITV bosses so quickly? I don't remember them quickly hauling the police, council workers and councillors in for an interrogation over all those grooming gangs days after the event came to light. Do you? No, just the opposite, in fact. And before you ask, no, I'm not a supporter of Schofield's. I do not watch the programme. I just think we're allowing our perspectives on life to be skewed by this stuff. If what he did was illegal, then call the police. And there seem to be a lot of people in the establishment who are trying to divert our attention away from what they're up to. Look at how bad he is, don't look at us, seems to be what they're saying. And it seems to fit their narrative. Right, Michael Gove, you little Tory. Stop on our military and make sure that those new laws to protect tenants also protect those living in military accommodation. Yes, it's come to light that military accommodation will not be covered by these new rules. And given the reportedly awful state of military accommodation these days, you'd have to wonder what's going on. What is it with these terrible ministers? It seems to be anyone who believes in their country is ignored, especially those who would potentially lay down their lives for it. Is it because the armed forces are so small these days and represent a small share of the vote? Or that they have to do exactly what they're told, even if it means missing out on what the rest of the population gets? Or is it because they can't vent their spleens publicly or go on strike? Or is it that you want to drive people out of uniform so as to engineer the smallest armed forces we've ever had and use it as an excuse to lever us into the EU Defence Treaty? And as ever, the government response is, we've poured more money into the problem. And my question would be, how much of that ended up as dividends, and how many cosy matey contractors trousered a fortune for it, a la PPE contracts. If you've done such a good job there, then why the problem with treating the armed forces and their families, remember, in exactly the same way as you treat everyone else? Service personnel do their utmost to provide a first-class service at the drop of a minister's demands, but you continually treat them like second-class citizens. But the military top brass, as illustrated by the RAF, seem more intent on meeting their own self-imposed diversity targets than looking after the people they've already got. The Telegraph claims it's seen an email from one squadron leader who worked in the Officer and Aircrew Selection Centre, where he berates his colleagues, saying he doesn't need to see loads of useless white male pilots, and then tells them to focus on meeting diversity targets. Beneath contempt. Not only that, it alienates the largest by far ethnic group from serving. That's probably the aim anyway. But if things get really nasty, people like that particular RAF officer would be quite happy to call on the patriotic duty of those very same young white men he rejected and issue them with a draft order. And if you have any doubts about the government's plans to drive the proles out of their cars, just bear in mind that the latest figures from the Times shows the widening gap between the number of electric vehicles on the streets and the number of available charging points. If the powers that be were really serious about EVs for all, there would be far more charging points available. The government is probably hoping that local councils can force their no-traffic 15-minute neighbourhoods through quickly enough so as to negate the need for charging points for the plebs. Richard.
Time to grow up, children. I've had enough of the juvenile antics of these so-called eco-zealots. Yes, these sanctimonious, virtue-signalling snowflakes should have gone away by now. But no, they seem to be sticking around like someone who has accidentally stepped into a little bit of dog muck and not realised it. And this is why the pungent aroma that they're noticing all through the day is following them around. And it is thus with Just Stop Oil. Yes, they have the sticking power of a pubic hair in your teeth, with a similar level of annoyance, I might add. Now, I am actually going to blame the public at large here for Just Stop Oil's continued demonstrations and presence in our lives, because the public are too compliant. What the public need to do is peacefully protest against Just Stop Oil. Yes, against them, getting into their cars, no, not getting into their cars, but slowing their cars down and, slowing their buses and their trains down when they want to go home after their day of virtue signalling, and to make sure that they find the same sort of level of inconvenience throughout their day by slowing the public transport that they take down, or their personal transport. Probably most of them have got cars, and they needed to get to work. Oh, hang on, I don't think any of them have got jobs, but there we go. You see, this is siege warfare being applied to us by these protests. So, we should make a ring fence around their kind of mode of transport when they're leaving their protests. Yes, after all, it's your right to peacefully protest too. Look, I have no sympathy for these people or their cause, but I do believe I am someone who is green. Lots of you are green. In fact, I'm probably greener, and so are you, than half of these eco-zealots. It's just that we don't buy into the global warming net zero stuff. I just want to live in a hobbit home, under a hill, and live off the land, and everyone else can just leave me alone. And I think we should go back to the horse and cart and revel in feasting together, eating meat. You can keep your modern-day trappings and shove them where the sun don't shine. Let's face it, anyone who thinks that it's okay to pollute the environment is an idiot, but thankfully, most people don't think like that anyway. It's just that we've become, as a society, way too reliant on environmentally damaging lifestyles. But that's what happens when you remove man from the land. How else are we to have a decent way of life when we are prevented from looking after ourselves? Of course we are going to take up excessive resources when we are left unable to feed ourselves and heat ourselves from the natural environment. So these sanctimonious elite satanic parasites who keep us from the land and personal independence. People like King Charles, you can all go and do one. This illegitimate king's coronation probably did more damage to the environment than the culmination of his entire lifetime of fake green concerns. Oh, and funny how the king continues to associate with dodgy individuals, with his charities, yes. What's his name now? Jimmy Schofield? Anyway, something like that. It's not that, but anyway. Anyway, what do you lot think about what has been said in today's video? Leave your steamy statements in the comment section below. And we will see you again tomorrow after Jeff's early afternoon video. And yeah, we'll take a little look in our merchandise area if you want to. And thank you to all the people who support us on PayPal and via Patreon. Listen, it really does make a difference to be able to make these videos because, yeah, advertising, you know, it can be very hit and miss. But a lot of you see the adverts and you go, oh, grief, another advert. Yeah, I know, but it sort of pays for these videos. Anyway, we'll see you again tomorrow around the 7 o'clock mark. So you lot, take care.